When you're newly diagnosed, and once the panic and fear has subsided a bit, the next thought can often be, what's the best MS medication? Like there's one clear winner, one answer. But here's the truth no one says out loud. The best medication on paper can be a terrible fit for your actual life. And I've seen this as a nurse, and I've felt this as a patient. People choose based on convenience, or fear, or because their friend is on it. And then they're blindsided by bad labs, or constant infections, or the mental load of a drug that never really fit their body to begin with. The good news? Well, you do not have to guess. But to stop guessing, we need a way to think about this. That's why instead of asking, what's the best, we're going to ask better questions. So, today I'm going to compare infusions, pills, and injectables using 3 filters and/or questions. How well do they work? How safe are they? And what's the real life burden they carry? I'll also tell you about one high efficacy option that sounds like a dream until it quietly wrecks your routine. And I promise, if you're the kind of person who likes low maintenance, that part is going to surprise you. Stay tuned. All right. I know it doesn't feel like it, and I've said this a million times, I'm a broken record, past videos, but it is going to be okay. Except for me trying to pronounce some of these medications. Here's the scorecard I would use as a nurse and as someone who actually has to live with these choices. So, the first filter is simple. Before we worry about side effects, we need to know if it's controlling the disease. And that brings us to the first point, medication efficacy. So let's start with the obvious question. Is this med even working? And this is, of course, efficacy being a fancy word for, are you having relapses? Are new lesions showing up? Is your disability stable? Is this working? So to put it in plain English, we're asking, is this medication putting out the fire? Or are we just hoping it burns slower? Now, once we know how strong it is, we also have to ask, what does this cost us biologically? Because power without safety isn't obviously a win. And this is, of course, where safety conversation comes along. You could say, okay, so it works, great. But then at what cost? And that brings us to the second point, safety. We're looking at real safety here. We're looking at infection risk, PML risk, cancer signals, liver injury, heart rhythm issues, blood counts. And here's the one people don't talk about enough. What happens if you stop it? Some medications have a rebound risk, meaning your MS can flare worse than before. That conversation with your physician needs to happen early, period. And even if you're okay with the risks, there is another layer people forget. Medicine doesn't happen in a vacuum, it happens in your real life. This is the part no one really warns you about and actually determines whether you'll be on this med in a year from now. This is also where the Google spiraling starts. Then there's the third part, lifestyle fit, and this is the one that a lot of people, everyone ignores. This can also be the silent deal breaker. So, how often are you dosing? How much monitoring is needed? How long will you be in the clinic? How much insurance drama is involved in playing Mother May I? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If you can't realistically stay on a medication, it doesn't matter how powerful it is. Adherence isn't a character flaw, it's a systems problem. If a medication requires perfection to work, we need to recognize that up front and obviously be realistic because we're humans, not robots. Now that we have our framework, let's talk strategy, because how you apply this scorecard depends on how active your MS is. And this is where high efficacy early enters the chat. Means you choose a stronger medication up front to reduce inflammation fast. Why? Well, because early inflammation can cause damage that never fully reverses. And that's the part that keeps neurologists up at night. So, this strategy makes sense if you have frequent relapses, an active spinal cord lesions, rapid MRI changes, or your symptoms are leaving you feeling, well, generally really bad. But if you have low disease activity, history of serious infections, significant safety concerns, slowing down is reasonable. Being best, in this case, doesn't mean being brave. It means being matched correctly. So what does this actually look like in real medications? Let's start with the big guns, and this is where infusion therapies usually come in. Okay, high efficacy infusions. This is where people go when they say, I just want the strongest thing you've got. Well, however, this isn't a bar and nobody broke up with this. Well, okay, our bodies kind of have, but what I'm talking about are what we call anti-CD20 therapies. And examples of this would be ocrelizumab and ublituximab. These lower B cells driving inflammation. They're effective, they're popular, and they're everywhere in 2026. People love the rhythm. You have your infusion, you live your life, you repeat in 6 months. It feels clean, controlled, organized, like my grandfather's workbench. Until, of course, your IgG drops. But mentally, well, that break matters because you're not, hopefully, thinking about your MS every day. However, here's the mistake. Twice a year does not mean low maintenance. It means a different type of maintenance, like 3 main things different. So you've got issue number 1, infection monitoring. They're gonna watch with this, they're gonna watch your immunoglobulin levels, and this is to gauge kind of where your immunity's at. They're gonna look at repeat sinus infections and bronchitis and shingles. Vaccines, well, timing matters with that. And if you have a fever that won't quit, call your doc. Don't wait. All right, then there's the second issue, infusion day reality. You could lose half a day or more sometimes. You get pre-meds and with that comes Benadryl or a similar kind of antihistamine, and that's a nighty-night. Sometimes steroids, and that'll be the opposite. You'll want to clean the entire house. And sometimes you'll just feel fine. But most of the time you'll feel like you got hit by a truck and you will likely need someone to drive you home. So with that, you need to plan a mini sick day. Don't schedule a double shift right after this and or work overtime and then blame your body. Then there's issue number 3. Oh, insurance. Step therapy, site of care restrictions, random MRI demands, and appeals. It's bureaucracy bullshit, honestly. Not personal. This is the part that no one shows really in the pharmaceutical commercials. So you want to start your paperwork early. You'll likely develop a close relationship with your neurologist and many other members of his or her office. You want to make sure you write down every phone call you have with insurance to keep track of things. Definitely protect yourself. Now, not all infusions behave the same way. There's another infusion option that works honestly very differently. Let's compare that to a monthly model. Bringing us to natalizumab, otherwise known as Tysabri. Where many IV medications are every 6 months, Tysabri is actually once a month, but with incredibly fast control. However, the conversation here is the risk of PML, and that is why JC virus monitoring in this case isn't optional. While the medication inhibits cell traffic rather than deplete B cells, it falls in this monitoring category along with other infusions. So if your JC virus status changes, then your plan with this medication may change. That's not a failure, that's smart medicine and keeping you safe. So with this, maybe infusions aren't your thing. Okay, let's shift gears to pills, because on the surface, they feel easier. So let's talk about that. Okay, oral medications. So, pills feel normal. Pills feel safer. They feel less sick or patient-y. There's no infusion chair or IV, but your immune system doesn't care how the medication is delivered. So let's be honest, you don't really eliminate burden, you relocate it, and it can be a lot of pills. An example for these would be fumarates, dimethyl, or diroximol. These can be a solid first-line choice, but main issues, you've got flushing, you've got stomach problems. And I'm not talking the cute skunk and Bambi flushing, the blushing flushing. This is a hot, red, itchy, meeting-interrupting flushing. And then there's the diarrhea for days. So you take this with a full meal And you might also ask your physician for a slower titration of it. And please don't tough it out for months like I first did. Small adjustments can save a good medication. With these meds, they will monitor lymphocytes closely, otherwise known as the white blood cells, your germ-fighting soldiers. And if you're constantly sick, you're gonna wanna call your doc. If you have a new neuro symptom, don't wait and see. Again, call your doc. Now that's one category of pills, but there's another that works differently. The next medications are in the category of S1P modulators. Examples of this would be fingolimod, siponimod, ozanimod, and ponesimod. Yes. These trap immune cells in lymph nodes. They're effective, but they are also front-loaded with testing. You'll have EKG for heart rate to make sure that your heart rate doesn't get too low or slow. You're gonna have an eye exam for macular edema. You're gonna be monitored chickenpox immunity check, and you're gonna be aware that shingles could happen. It's all fun and games till you get the zoster. So here's the big warning. Stopping these abruptly can cause rebound disease. This isn't oops, I forgot. This can be serious. Not like the pill where you can get pregnant. This is about how bad you'll feel. So with other meds being a my symptoms came back situation, this can be a my symptoms are worse than before situations. So you need to plan these refills like plane tickets far in advance. Never run close to empty. But then there's a completely different approach. And that brings us to cladribine, otherwise known as Mavenclad. This kind of combines both the infusions that I discussed in terms of timing and pills. So this has a short treatment window. It's obviously not daily forever. You take a few pills over the course of about 2 months, only twice a year, for every 6 months or however you look at it. Psychologically, that can feel freeing. However, for safety, you have lymphopenia monitoring, again, your white blood cells. You have to really time any sort of family planning pregnancy things because these meds can be super dangerous for a fetus. And then there's the insurance hoops, which can be very intense and make you want to throat punch someone. Daily pill fatigue is real, but so is infusion fatigue. So the real question is, which burden could you carry long-term with the options so far? And you can feel free to comment below if you want. All right, as we move on, we can't ignore the original MS treatments. Sometimes the old school options are exactly right. So let's talk about the OGs and let me surprise you. Sometimes the boring meds win. And this brings us to injectables. Interferons, glatiramer acetate, otherwise known as Copaxone. It's an oldie, an original, but a goodie. They have a long, safe history, and that matters to some people, and especially with those who have low disease activity, they're family planning, or worried about pregnancy. It's definitely the safest of all of them, and it has a lower risk tolerance. Monitoring is usually lighter, but not zero. With interferons, they're going to track liver enzymes, thyroid, blood counts. Flu-like symptoms with these meds are common early in. And injection fatigue, yeah, that's real. Like several times a week, if not every day real. But here's the honest part. For highly active multiple sclerosis, these are often for lower efficacy and not higher. So if MS is throwing you punches right now, you're going to need something that blocks them. Probably not this medication. If your MS is quiet and you value predictability, well then in this case, boring might be perfect for you. And just when you think you've heard every option, let's peek at what's coming next because, well, the pipeline matters too. All right, if you've been ferociously panic power browsing MS online lately, you've probably seen the 3 letters BTK. And no, I'm not talking about the serial killer. But in talking about this, just know that the hype and data are not the same thing. BTK inhibitors. So these are oral meds that target immune signaling pathways. Or another way to look at it is ultimately they're nipping it in the bud. Is this exciting? Hell yes. Game changing? Maybe. Is this fully understood in 2026? Nope, not yet. Those guys in the lab coats are still learning about long-term safety, monitoring plans, and ideal patient profiles. So if your multiple sclerosis is active right now, obviously, do not delay effective treatment waiting for this hype. Instead, you need to ask your physician in the future, if this becomes available, would this be possible and what would make me a good candidate? Here's what I want you to do next, and this is where you take back control. I want you to use the scorecard. Hopefully, it'll help you narrow things down along with your doctor's proposals. If you have high activity, you're going to obviously ask about early high efficacy and infection planning. If you get frequent infections, you're going to want to consider requesting a written monitoring schedule. That is completely reasonable, and they should be able to do that for you. At the end of the day, clarity reduces fear. So with this video, hopefully you've learned that the best medication isn't the strongest, what you see on TV right now, or what you are hearing most other MS patients are on. The best one fits your risks, your goals, and your real life. I've also got some homework for you. I want you to write down your top 3 goals and your top 3 fears. Then bring them to your neurologist at your next appointment. Ask him or her, what are we monitoring? How often are we monitoring? And what's the plan B, or what are my options? That's how you stop guessing. If you feel comfortable, please drop a comment with your current med class and or type and your biggest side effect concern. And I'm even going to link the scorecard below in the description so you can use it at your next appointment. You don't need the best drug. You need the right one for you. The strongest medication doesn't win. The one you can stay on is the one that wins. Alrighty, y'all. Like, comment, subscribe, and throw me some love for totally winning on my drug pronunciations. I will see you in the next video.